Ricin is a deadly poison which is obtained from ordinary castor beans and which causes symptoms of natural death. This is a project taken from an article in the Poor Man's James Bond, Volume 3, page 26. For this experiment, you will need the following: castor beans, large soup cans, household lye, paper towels, acetone, glass jars with lids, water, paper filters, sieve, funnel, plastic cups, screen, newspaper, hypodermic syringe, and dust mask, gas mask, or respirator.
Now I'd like to tell you about ricin. Ricin is one of the most toxic organic substances known. 1/2000th of a grain is lethal. And just about all the material you might find on ricin and its extraction is in the Poor Man's James Bond, Volume 3. And that starts about page 23 and goes quite through, and it gives a very good coverage. Now, ricin is simply an albumin extracted from castor beans. I will show you what castor beans look like. See, they look like big bloated ticks. And your first step is to get this hull off of the castor beans. And to do that, you add some water to the cup where it covers them nicely. And then you have a spoon, you get some regular lye from the department, from your cleaning department of any supermarket, and you put in a good teaspoonful, and you stir it up for a minute, and then you've got to put something over it to cover them because they float, and you want them down in there, but that's self-explanatory. Anyway, after they've been in that an hour or two, then they're a little larger, and you have to take the hulls off, and that's very easy because the hulls have been expanded. You just take like that, and take your pliers, give a nice crunch, and then it doesn't take but a couple of seconds to take the whole thing off. See there, it's as simple as that. Now you got your bean, and this is what a bunch of them look like, hulled. Now the next thing after you've got them hulled is, I'll get that out of the way, you've got to mash them. Now there are two ways. One is one way to take the oil out is to put the beans in some folds of newspaper and take a hammer and pound it good. You do that on the floor, and that will really pound the beans and take some of the oil out of it right then. But also, there's another step to it. You take and you pick up those castor beans mashed up, and that's not hard. And then to press them more, you take some paper towels. Now, the paper towel type press is done very simply. You fold it once, again, one more time, and then put it at the bottom of a tin can. Now, you've got like that there. Okay, now the next thing you do is you take your paper towel and you dump all this stuff on the paper towel. Get rid of that. It's okay to touch it. It's not going to hurt you. It's only when it's been, well, when you're dealing with the pure ricin that you want to make sure you don't breathe any of it. Now, this might be a little mushy for you at first, but that doesn't really matter. Okay, you fold it over again, and then just wrap it up like that. Then you go like this, and like that, and like that, back and forth on itself. Then you sort of ball it up, put like this, nice and well centered. Make another folded towel, put that on top of that, And then you take several can lids and you put it in, force them all the way down. Now the idea is to press the oil out of these beans. Now with the paper, and especially if you leave it in the paper overnight, it'll take a lot of oil out, but you want even more than that. So what you do is you take this and you put it under a bed leg, as illustrated here. See, here's the can, here's the lids, the bounty pad, the towel with the beans in it, and another bounty pad, and you put the bed leg in here right in the middle and force it down so you've got a natural press. So after you get up the next day, this is what it looks like when it's pressed. Just shake it out. Whoops. Bear with me here. Now here you got them in there, you just dig them all out. Throw the pads aside, they've got most of the grease in them. Then you unroll your bounty towel, like so. It is just full of oil. You couldn't hardly do better at a machine shop in pressing. And now we're coming close to the really nearly oilless castor bean pulp. Okay, so once you've got it off, if it tears the paper, that's okay. The paper doesn't mean anything. You can put some of the paper into the solution. Now we just get this out of the way. And the next thing, you take the castor bean pulp and whatever paper is on it and put it in a mason jar or whatever jar you want. Like that, and don't worry about the paper because that won't be part of it. And then you take 7 ounces of water, pour it in there, like so. 3/4 of an ounce of table salt, and blend it for from 3 to 5 minutes, and then pour it in a jar and let it set for about 48 hours. Now what that does, it separates the albumin, which has the ricin in it, from the bean pulp. And so in this way you throw away the bean pulp once you've got the albumin out of it. And so you just take another jar. This is a good one to do it because it's just, oops, that's not the right one either. See, I'm not being too formal here. Just showing you how the stuff works. And as you work it out, you'll make mistakes, as I do and as everybody else does, especially kitchen chemists and mad scientists, because we make the most mistakes of all, because we're just in it for the fun of it. So what we do is we slosh this around to get it nicely broken up. Now this is the liquid kind. Now this takes longer because there's so much fluid in there, and it sticks to the filter. But anyway, just let it go like that. Now when you've got when you've got all the liquid out, you just throw the pulp away, and the liquid is fantastic for using in a hypodermic needle. You take and you give a quick shove into somebody's rump, and especially if it's like on a crowded street, you just go up in back of some Russian soldiers, you just give him a quick stab and then fade into the crowd, and he'll just rub his behind for a little bit, and then he will die in about 3 days of pneumonia. A lot of my customers wanted to know how to get all the oil out, and they wanted the acetone process. Now, you can buy acetone at any paint or hardware store for about $2 a quart. And you put your ounce of pulverized castor beans in a jar and then you pour in about 4 ounces of acetone, and you shake it up nice, and you leave it for about 3 days. You can shake it whenever you want, but that doesn't have too much to do with it. And that will take out plenty enough castor bean ingredient to go on to your next step. Now, even so, I would say that the powder, I would suggest, would be that the powder would meet anyone's needs. I think that what happened to the Legionnaires was that the person had very fine powder without going all the way to get the pure ricin, and he put the powder in the air conditioning system, and that went all over the room in very small bits, because it just takes a fleck of the powder holding a little bit of the ricin in it to kill, because it's like a catalyst. It's like, for instance, if you can imagine a whole warehouse full of gunpowder, and you take a tiny spark, and that sets off the gunpowder. Well, a tiny fleck of this ricin in the nose or intravenously from a needle will just start a chain reaction among the cells that it acts on, and the person will die of pneumonia in about 3 days. But anyway, if you'll notice here, see that very fine white powder in the bottom there? Now that is after it's been counted to 200. Of course, you could count to 300 or 400 and get even more powder, but you've got a whole lot of lethal stuff here. And then what you do is you filter this. Shake it up good and filter it in another of these things. And then I'll tell you how to get the very fine powder. Try not to let it run over, and if there's any sludge in there, don't bother with it. Well, there is some sludge, but it happens to be very fine powder sludge, but that's fine. This is all you'll need. Now you're all set up. Now when this, and see how quick that's coming out of there. This at the bottom is just acetone, and when we're done with that, we just throw it away. Preferably someplace outside or in the garbage where no one can get at it, no pets or anything. And so then you'll have an ounce of probably the most lethal organic substance there is, and a little bit will go a long way. And now getting back to this, the liquid stuff, what is the best delivery system for it would be through a hypodermic needle or, say, a water pistol. Now, I got this is a little squirt water pistol, and what you do is you take a baggie and you wrap it around it, because you don't want to get any of this on your hands. And another innovation is to mix half of this liquid and half DMSO. Now, DMSO has the property that it takes anything through the skin extremely fast. It will take any kind of poison. They use it for arthritis, and of course they use pain medications, and they'll put it in the DMSO, and that will drive it through the skin. And say, for instance, that you should load your little squirt with half of this water and half DMSO, and you just act like you're clowning around before your opponent, maybe like a Russian guard, and then just squirt him like that, and he'll probably knock you down, but then you go on, see, and in about 3 days he's dead. And so that'd pay you for knocking him down. And of course this little squirt holds maybe about 100 little squirts, and you could just pass among a mob of Russians and have a high old time, and you probably wouldn't even go to jail. Now, we've got this just about as far as it needs to go here, and so I will add the Epsom salt solution, but first I'm going to put on a glove, because any of this moisture that gets on your hands, that is extremely poisonous. So we don't want to get that on the hands, at least not on your hands. Now, I'm lifting that out. I'm going to set this aside because this is contaminated. And now the next thing I'm going to do is pour in this 3 ounces of water with 1 teaspoonful of Epsom salts. And if the book tells it like it is, then this Epsom salt should coagulate the ricin in there, which is at the beginning like it's an albumin, like egg white. So if we do it right, then you should see little flecks going down through there. But even if you shouldn't, now I've seen it before, but now I got a camera on me, and every time I have a camera on me, something goes screwy. But in a few minutes, that should start coming out there, and you can see the little white flakes. But we're not going to wait a few minutes. When it starts, I'll bring it back before the camera. Now, I can see it coagulating only very faintly. It's too faint for the camera, but already a lot of the albumin has solidified into pure ricin on the bottom, if you can pick up that.
We got it.
Okay. But again, I would say don't even bother with that part, because when you finish it, all you got is a little bit of ricin like this. And of course, that's fantastically potent. But I think you should just take it to the part where you've got the liquid, and then use the liquid in a syringe or water pistol or whatever it is. Or better still, use the powder itself. And now to get the best powder, you've got to use the acetone. Like I said, 4 ounces of acetone to 1 ounce of castor bean pulp. And then you put it in a filter, and in one of these filter holders I invented. And then, now the liquid has gone out of that, and you've got a cone of the mush, and it still has some acetone in it, but acetone dries very quickly. So what we're going to do, you see this powder here? Aha, that's beautiful stuff. That'll knock off hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Russians. All you could probably meet that day. And if you put it in the air conditioner of any kind of squad room they're using, or if they got air-conditioned quarters. Now, being Russians, they probably don't know what an air conditioner is, but they'd learn from us. And so you just, better if you teach them how to use it so you can put this stuff in the air conditioning system. And then you take a spatula and you mash it up, spread it around good, because we want to get it to the point where it's a very fine powder. Right now, it's not at all dangerous because it's soaked with acetone. But when we start turning this into a really fine powder, then you'll want to wear the face mask. Now, also, this was run through 4 ounces of acetone, and then I did what I'm doing now, and now I'm doing it again. I threw away the acetone, and I put in 4 more ounces of acetone so that we could get it so that it's take even more of the oil in it out of it, because you can't use it as long as it has any oil in it. So you run the process twice to take more oil out of it. Now we got this pretty well dried, and so the next step is to take and run it through this screen and see how much good tiny powder we get. You just dump it in there. Now you need the face mask on at this point, because you don't want to snuff up any of the powder up your nose, because that would be really bad after a while. And we just take this stuff with the residue and put it in the trash. Then take the spatula and help some of it go through. Yeah, it's going through nice. Now, if you can get a close-up on this, you'll find as fine a powder as you can want. Now, this was only done with 2 soakings in acetone and 2 pulverizations in the blender. Of course, you could run it, you could do the thing 3 times, and you'd get even more and finer. Now, if you can make a close-up of this powder, let me set this aside. Now, you really have some lethal stuff here. It's just as flaky as anyone would want it. And as I said, I think it was the powder from the beans themselves, without any salt solution or anything else, that was put in the air conditioner at the hotel and got all of those Legionnaires. Now that is fantastic stuff. It's as fluffy as you'd want it, and it's also fluffy enough to put in a hypodermic needle with to put it back in some liquid.